Well, there will be oral arguments this February.
February. Oof. Elections na yun. Wow. Interesting times. Oh, wow. I'm sure many will follow that Supreme Court, especially those who want to bash the government or have a reason in this. I want to ask another question on this issue, Justice, before we go to the ombudsman issue. Um, how do we make sure na hindi sinasakyan ng mga opportunist elements? I mean, itago natin sa mga pangalan na DDS itong issue na ito because these are legitimate questions we're raising about the fiscal practices of the BBM administration, but clearly pinagpipiyastahan ng mga Piatos and Mary Grace and those kinds of people, right? Which is obviously a perfect distraction for them, but also a way for them to claw their way back to the hearts and minds of people ahead of the elections.
Yes, I can see, and I've expected this, that uh, those who are at the receiving end of the investigation of the Quadcom and of the Senate will use the PhilHealth issue against the administration, and it's happening. And that's very natural. And this will also help explain to the people what's happening. But of course, we know where this is coming from, no? But that's part of the political debate now.
Yeah, hindi rin maiwasan. But I'm just saying we have to be very careful kasi yun nga, nakikita ko sinasakyan talaga itong issue na to. Halos itong the whole confidential fund issue is now being pushed to the sideline because now the focus, essentially narinig ko sa camp na yan, kami millions lang eh. Itong pinag-usapan, billions ngayon. And then of course, I wanna say, oh, billions din yung Farmali, billions din yung mga skandalo during the Kong's time. But unfortunately, that's how things work in our politics, no? You always go, what about this, what about that? So I just hope that people are careful. Now, as much as we have to hold BBM accountable, let's not also lose sight of the other important issues that we have to deal with, including all of the exposés we have been having. Now, Justice, I want to ask you about the ombudsman because mahirap magsalita, but let's just say Conchita Morales is one of the few ombudsman or ombudswomen that like of course she's my fellow Ilocano, you're also related, Um let's just say my Keisha, I'll just put it that way, right? Um for the purpose of our audience, how is an ombudsman selected for that matter? Um, to what degree is an ombudsman susceptible to political influence if not necessarily a person of highest integrity? Although hindi ko sinasabi hindi yun ang kaso. And to what degree do we need to get the ombudsman issue right in the coming months or next year as we look at the transition in the ombudsman office? Ano bang trabaho ng ombudsman office? Bakit kailangan maayos yung ombudsman office in short?
Well, the ombudsman is actually the uh, guardian uh, of the funds of the government, the ultimate guardian before the Supreme Court, uh, and the that's the office that will go after graft and corruption, that will stop graft and corruption in government. Basically, that's it, to stop graft and corruption in government. And uh, the ombudsman will be nominated by the Judicial and Bar Council, and then
But who nominates the Judicial and Bar Council? How are they selected?
well, the Judicial Bar Council is composed of one, the Chief Justice as the presiding officer, one representative from Congress, one representative from Congress appointed by Congress, one representative from the IBP appointed by the president, one representative from the retired justices appointed by the president, and one at large appointed also by the president. So
I hear a lot of appointed by the president.
yes, that's it. So my proposal really is that the if ever we have to amend our constitution, that the members of the Judicial and Bar Council should be appointed one third, one third, one third by the executive, the judiciary, and by the legislative.
Ano ba yung system sa Sweden? Do you happen to know? Because that's where it came from, right? This whole ombudsman office is a
Yeah,
Scandinavian.
that's a concept in Sweden. In other words, he will see to it that graft and corruption is stopped in government.
And speaking of graft and corruption, I mean, I heard some people are saying, like for instance, if a politician weaponizes cyber libel, etc., to silence his rivals or opponents, could that be a form of abuse of power? Could that be within the purview of the ombudsman office?
Well, that will more likely be under the regular courts.
Hmm. So ano yung mga pasok sa graft and corruption?
Well, the,
Aside from
the
like appropriation of
prosecution of crimes under the anti-graft laws, the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, the uh, Code of Conduct for Government Employees, and uh, other provisions of the revised penal code like malversation involving public officials.
Justice, obviously, I don't know if you have seen, I recommended you as the next ombudsman. Is that something you may be interested in? If not, who are the other people you would, again, of course, you don't want to preempt, we have to respect the process, whatever. But, sino bang pwede mga matino-tino dyan na medyo Conchita Morales level, if not you, Justice Carpio? Kami,
Well,
we recommended you.
I haven't given it a thought yet, but definitely I'm out because I'm 75 and I mean, you need a younger guy there. It's a very taxing job.
There's always stem cell, but there's always Enrile who's like legal advisor at 100. But thank you, Justice Carpio, for politely rejecting our proposal. Pero may mga ibang tao, I mean, I know you don't want to put yourself on the spot, but may mga naisip ka ng dalawang tatlong tao na may good chance. Maybe you don't have to name them, but do you think there's a chance that we might get a good ombudsman next? Wala akong sinasabi sa current one. I'm just saying on the next one.
We should try to get a very good ombudsman because that's a key office in stopping graft and corruption, no? And that's one of our more important issues now. So
Lawyer ba dapat? Dapat ba lawyer by profession?
uh, yeah,
Is it
well, yes, he must be a lawyer.
Because someone was saying Heidi Mendoza. I'm not sure. I think Heidi Mendoza is more economics background. But anyway,
He's an accountant.
yeah, she's an accountant, right? Exactly. She's a numbers person. Um, Justice, now let's transition naman dito um sa issue ng budget ng Department of National Defense, right? One of the things we saw is a 30% slash dun sa proposed budget for AFP modernization from 50 billion down to 35 billion. There was some clownery in Senate. You had the Bato del Rosa types making whatever interventions there. Are you worried with the just 35 billion? That's not even 700, $600 million. Considering what we're facing right now in the West Philippine Sea, what is your read on the DND front?
Yes, I'm very worried that we're not giving the importance that it deserves. We are defending our sovereignty, and that's our territory. Our islands in in the Calayan Island Group and Scarborough Shoal, and without territory, you do not have a state. I mean, that's the primary duty of a state to defend its territory and maritime zones, and that's in the Constitution. So you cannot downgrade that problem and just forget about it. I think we should divert more resources in strengthening our defense, both the Coast Guard and the Navy, and otherwise we will lose our maritime zones and island territories in the West Philippine Sea.
Yun nga eh. I mean, if we're looking at acquisition of, HIMARS or acquisition of Typhoon systems or fighter jets, I mean, $600 million is not really much. I mean, again, can we remind our people, kasi parati ko narinig Justice Carpio, is like, bakit tayo gumagastos? Magpakabait lang naman tayo sa China or US. Let's just be nice and diplomatic. Sayang yung pera natin. Itong 700 million pwede natin lagay sa eskwela, yung mga ganun. Can we have a realistic wake-up call doon sa mga kaibigan natin? What are we facing here today? from China and some of the other questionable characters in the region if we don't spend enough on our own? Pwede ba tayo umasa lang sa just being nice, being meek, as Digong said, towards China, or just umasa lang tayo sa US? Ano ba yan?
Well, sabi ni Digong, let's ask mercy from President Z. Uh, but President Z is determined to make the 10 dash line the national boundary. And that means we will lose uh, Calayan Island Group, we will lose Scarborough Shoal, and 80% of our exclusive economic zone. If you show weakness to China, the more China will bully you. China only understands military might. And right now, they look at us uh, as a weakling. That's why they treat
Sure.
us that way. So if we kneel down and ask for mercy, the more we'll be treated like a weakling.
You have to get the respect grudgingly, even, right? That's how it works with bullies, right? I mean, there's no other way. Um, well, I mean, maybe Digong will get mercy once ICC comes for him when he goes to Shanghai or Xiamen or wherever in China he loves to stay. Um, but just as going back again dito sa West Philippine Sea issue, what do you think we got right in 2024? You think the Transparency Initiative did enough in terms of laying down the foundation? Obviously, it's not a silver bullet. But was it enough, for instance, ako kasi argument ko is it at least unified the country on a singular narrative of what is our national interest because panahon ni Digong, postmodern eh. Parang
Mm.
multiverse eh. Parang yung iba, hindi, doon na tayo sa China. May point naman sila eh. Parang, what the heck is going on here, right? Parang, kine-question pa yung position ng Pilipinas in favor of China. Like, at least we have been able to sideline some of those clowns, no? And some of those apparatchiks of China. But nevertheless, obviously, medyo kapal moks din yung kalaban natin. Wala rin silang pake. They keep on pushing the envelope. So what did we get right and what are the next steps that we have to accordingly for
Well,
2025?
yeah. Well, we have actually increased uh, we have we have received more support now from the international community. We have just ratified our reciprocal access agreement with Japan, and I think they will also ratify on their end. And we have France and UK willing to do uh, uh, visiting forces agreement with us. So I think we've got that right. I mean, we should continue to expand our security relationship with like-minded states. That's very important because, Richard, uh, we may have a U.S. president who will say, "Oh, China is not doing anything wrong if it invades the West Philippine Sea." When I heard Trump say that you cannot blame Russia for invading Ukraine, I could hear him say you cannot blame China for invading the Calayan Island Group. So we have to have security arrangements with more countries, and we should strengthen our external defense because at the end of the day, uh, we have to factor in the worst case scenario if the U.S. becomes isolationist and we have to defend our country on our own and with some states who might still want to help us. So uh, it's like uh, it's like Vietnam. They don't have a military alliance with any country, so they really strengthen their self-defense posture now. They have 6 kilo class submarines. They're buying BrahMos missiles now from India. They have bought a lot of missiles from Israel, so they have diversified their sources of procurement of arms, and that's what we should do. I mean, we cannot forever rely on a security partner because the sentiment of the people of our security partner might change.
Person is Donald Trump, right? Medyo mahirap umasa. I mean, it would be foolish for you, right? To bet your future on the mercy of China or mercy of Trump, for that matter, right? Or reliability of Trump, right? I think it would be foolish. Kaya nga, I was quite surprised by the seeming lack of appreciation of the defense and strategic dilemma we face right now. Justice, what are the things that Philippines should do now, given this background of uncertainty with Trump, this background of China becoming more aggressive with Taiwan, especially? Should we be more involved on the Taiwan issue? Do you think we should allow more American weapon systems deployment there near Taiwan? Should we ask more from America in exchange for that? What are we looking at here?
Well, we should strengthen our uh, missile defense. We have the BrahMos. We should acquire more, and we should acquire the Typhoon. And because we have to have our own uh, ant, uh, anti-access area denial capability. We adapt what the Chinese adopted when they were weaker than the Americans in the South China Sea. They used their missiles to target the ships, and that's what we should do. We should use the missiles to 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 target Chinese warships that encroach on our exclusive economic zone, and that will deter China. In the case of the Americans, because of the Chinese anti-ship missiles, they have to pull out most of the time out of the South China Sea, farther in beyond this first island chain. No, so uh, we can adopt that policy because ultimately that is our the only defense that we can have if uh, if we become if the U.S. will not honor its obligation to us, or if the American sentiment will change.
Exactly. This is what I say to some of our leftist friends. They say, "Oh, let's be Vietnam." It's like, yeah, except they spend like hundreds of billions of dollars ahead of us in terms of their military capabilities, right? They have a mobilized military. They have a history of fighting. I mean, again, like, there's just so much naivete out there that really makes you scratch your head. Why some people even dare to talk about this issue? I call it sloganeering. Madaling pakinggan sa tweet, pero walang sense when you look at the hard realities on the ground. In as much as I want to make sure also we don't go foolishly into America's camp at the expense of our national interest. Now, Justice, for the last part of our discussion today and for this year, although God willing, I look forward to more discussions in person. Didisturbohin ka namin ulit, Justice Carpio. With siguro with Ronald, with Admiral, let's bring in more maybe not Ronald anymore. Baka mapahamak ka rin, Justice Carpio. We'll bring mga more PC people. Si Admiral siguro, Admiral. Um, we ended yung isang pre-Christmas talk natin with Ronald on this fear na if we don't get things right now, the call for extra constitutional, extra legal, rev gov, crackpot stuff will increase. And you know, it sounds something like parang yeah, I mean, ganun talaga, but it's like you keep on seeing more and more news about agitations, news about former military generals making noise again, news about did PMA Association invite Digong to give a speech to them or something like that? Like, what's going on? Is there like a smoke here that we have to pay attention to in a sense that there could be fire? What is your read there, Justice Carpy, without spilling beans?
Well, there are two main uh, two main approaches now, two schools of thought now. One school of thought to which I belong is that we have to, because they want reform in our society, everybody, both sides. No, uh, we must eradicate or minimize corruption. Second, that's the first. Second is we have to enact already the anti-political dynasty law. And third, they want electoral reforms. So ANIM has identified these three as the biggest problems of the country. Okay, let's assume that we agree with that. But there are two approaches. One, this can be done under the present constitution. We will ask the Supreme Court to uh, to strike down certain acts that violate the constitution. And the other one, the other school of thought is saying that the it's useless to rely on Congress, the executive, or the Supreme Court. We can only achieve these objectives through a revolutionary government. So these are the two options that eventually our people will face. So I'm on the side of, I think we can still uh, institute reforms in accordance with the Constitution. But I don't know if this is now a race. If the first group saying that we can reform the system from within can do it fast, then the other group for the RevGov will lose their reason for existence because the objectives have been achieved. So on the corruption side, the examples are PhilHealth. If the Supreme Court will decide in our favor on PhilHealth, you have also the confidential fund issue because it's spreading to local governments. They want every mayor wants his own confidential fund. So we have to stop it through the legal process. Hopefully we succeed. But if we don't succeed, then the RevGov will gain ground. That's the way I look at it.
Gov or even more aggressive version of Duterte, no? Or a combination of Duterte and some sort of military agitation and all of that. Obviously, my reading so far is that the men in uniform are still professional by and large. But at the same time, I also agree, Justice, that we might reach a deadlock soon. No, I mean, you may not have agreed with my deadlock argument on the fiscal malpractices issue, but I don't know, Justice, kasi you wonder, I mean, for how long will millions of Filipino people, right, put up with this, right? Napaulit-ulit na dismaya sila, di ba? Every 6 years at least, right? And the president comes in, promises heaven, golden eras, 6 months this, 6 months that, daan matuwid, uh, the strong republic, ganyan. And what we see is this persistent inequality, poverty, and sometimes you wonder. I mean, yeah, people have already made two at least protest votes, right? One is BBM. That's the biggest middle finger you can give to EDSA regime, right? Like we'll bring back the Marcoses, and previous to that was Duterte, which is kind of another middle finger to the whole democracy, constitutional order thing. But you're right. At some point, they might go and say, you know what, screw this all. Let's just burn down the house, right? And let's go for some. Why do you think that's a dangerous path? Why, I know parang for two of us because we are constitutionally minded
Well,
people. But for those who are not constitutionally oriented, Justice, why is that not sensible? Because the status quo is not working for many people, if not
well,
most of our
yeah.
people.
If we have a RevGov, the EU, the European countries, US, Canada, and all the rest, Australia, will not support the RevGov. I mean, uh, they will demand the return of democracy, and foreign investors will avoid us. So the economy will suffer, and and no foreign investors. They will withhold the financial support to the Philippines in terms of loans and grants. So we'll have a big problem, and the and of course, RevGov uh, will spawn a lot of military groups that will oppose it. You have the NPA, the MILF. So it will be a problem, a big problem. And
It will open a can
RevGov,
of worms. It will open up a can of worms.
yes, you will open up a can of worms, and there will be resistance from civil society. So it's
And correspondingly a crackdown. I mean,
yeah, there will be a
they're not
crackdown,
gonna
a
sit back. They're gonna
resistance.
put in jail.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we'll have a big problem. So I think we should avoid that path. That's why I hope that the what we're doing now to institute these reforms that have been identified by everybody, we agree that these reforms should be given priority already
Ako,
because there's
yeah, to just preempt some arguments, because people will say, oh, what about Thailand? Right? Ang dami nilang kudeta. It's still richer country than us, more progressive, more dynamic. But the reality is that nakailan kuna, hindi pa ni stable yung system nila, di ba? It looks like the RevGov is not working too. And actually, Thailand lost a lot of its economic potential. Their GDP per capita has essentially stagnated over the past few years. They could have been twice richer, even richer probably than Malaysia at this point if they got their act together. No, because the reason I'm saying that is because people will say, "Oh, bakit yung Thailand parating kudeta, parating junta? Maganda naman yung kalagayan sa Thailand."
Well, Thailand is lucky because it's along the route of tourists from Europe. They have maybe 4 or 5 times more tourists than us, or even more. So they have a big source of foreign exchange, and they have they're self-sufficient in food. They export a lot of rice. Their farmers are very productive. So it's and you have the Mekong River providing free irrigation to them. So it's a different landscape. No?
So you're
So
saying the
we are
Philippines
an
would be more like
archipelago of islands.
we'd be
So
more like Cuba. We were like
yeah, we are more
isolated,
like more
impoverished.
Cuba. Yeah.
Exactly. Like
So
even I mean, Cuba is nice and all, but I'm just saying, like, may fiesta, dancing, cha-cha, salsa, pero walang pera, di ba? Yeah, I mean, I'm just spelling this out, just because I'm thankful that you raised that issue. Kasi itong issue, narinig mo lang pagkausap mo yung mga komunista, Marxista,
mm,
gano'n. Pero sabi ko, for someone like you, who's like a man of the system, to say, hey, guys, we have to get our act together. Otherwise, papunta talaga tayo sa exciting part. I appreciate that, Justice Carpio. I appreciate that because how many times in my classes, and I've been teaching at the elite universities in the country, Ateneo, LaSalle, UP, you hear some students say once in a while, Sir, huwag na yung mga ano na yan. Di ba? Yung parang ubusin na. Di ba? So that tells you, there is that kind of, let's just call it political unconscious, right? Kung saan, some of